friend, how are you doing today? My name is Mary and this is Happily Ever Esch, and today I would like to share with you my top 5 classics that I would like to get to in 2020. So I have very strong opinions about what I call fizzy water, and I hands down think Waterloo is the best brand. Hashtag not sponsored. Waterloo does not care who I am. But oh my goodness, so delicious. I feel like if you don't like fizzy water, you should try Waterloo. So let me know. It's like the middle of winter, but I'm like lusting for summer, which is why I'm drinking fizzy water. But do you have an opinion? In the watermelon one, so good. But do you have an opinion about fizzy water? I would love to know. After that little detour, put that aside. So today I want to talk about classics. I adore classics. I love the payoff that you get from, for me at least, a lot of time and effort put into them. And so I have a couple little goals for this year, wanting to add more classics into my life, to not be afraid of the big size or the time that sometimes it takes me to get through them, but just to know that that time is well spent and there's always a good payoff. Even if I don't like the book, there's just something that feels very accomplished and like I've accomplished a lot when I finish a good classic, and they usually make me think. I have a TBR and I want to share with you about some classics that I want to read, and I would love to chat with you in the comments below about classics that you're hoping to get to in 2020 or ones that you've been putting off for way too long. So let's just hop on in. The first couple books that I want to complete from my classics TBR were written in the 1920s, and they just feel very fitting now that we've entered a new decade. Be reading them, and I also find the parallels between the 1920s and the 2020s extremely interesting, so itching to pick some things that have been written in that time period up. And so the first one that I have is The Beautiful and the Damned by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I absolutely love this cover. I really like the Barnes & Noble classics just because they have a really good appendix where they talk about things in the book, and like they just give a lot of good historical background or things maybe as a modern reader would be lost on you. They're a really good font size. They're very floppy. I love these editions, and a couple of the books are in this edition. So I just had to get that little plug in for these Barnes & Noble classics out of the way. But this book was written in 1921, I believe. This follows the story of a marriage. Two young people recently married, and their life is kind of just filled with glitz and glamour and talent and just all of these like young new beginnings. They're married and they're waiting for their inheritance to come in. They're waiting to inherit millions and millions of dollars, and they're partying and they're just experiencing the extreme luxury, extreme wealth of life. And I think we're just following their marriage, the crumbling of their marriage, their crumbling of their perception of beauty, discovering that beauty is fleeting, and what kind of happens, what do you have left in the end when all of these things have escaped your life. And so I think the theme of that sounds very interesting. I'm very excited to explore this. Also, the parallels between this book and the fate of F. Scott Fitzgerald's life is very interesting too. It was almost a little like prophetic in its writing, or his writing of this book. And I find just reading the synopsis of this book and doing a little more research of this book, just the parallels between that and then like our modern age and just the decadence and the indulgence and the luxury, but also kind of this like greater question of like, what is life? And I feel like it's just a question that we're grappling a lot with. What gives life meaning? It's probably everyone always does, but there seems to be just a lot of strong parallels between the plights of this time and the plights of our time. So yes, I'm very excited to see what this is all about. I've read The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Was not my favorite classic that I've ever read, but I did appreciate it for what it was. Not my favorite novel. I think that's the problem. I think so many people like love The Great Gatsby. It's their favorite novel, that I was a little like overhyped for it, if you can be overhyped for a classic, but I'm sure you can. You can be overhyped for anything. Anyway, I want to read this in 2020. All right, another book that was written in 1921, or at least won the Pulitzer Prize in 1921, and it was a lady, so yeah, go her. The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton, another book about marriage. This one is looking at high society in New York. We have a man who is engaged to be married to a very sweet conventional woman, and in walks in or struts in or whatever, you know, this countess. She is mysterious and has just recently come from a divorce. I think our main character falls head over heels for her, and it's what does he do? Does he stay with convention? Does he go for the scandal? What does that mean for his life? What does life have meaning if we stick to the ropes, or should we, you know, go for the crazy, the unconventional, the uncouth maybe? I don't know. But anyway, again, we're looking at marriage, we're looking at decisions, and we're looking how these decisions will then affect our life. And I'm very excited about reading this guy too. Duty and Passion. Who will win? We'll find out in the Age of Innocence. All right, next we have my love, Miss Elizabeth Gaskell. Her next novel from my list that I need to read is Sylvias Lovers, and this one is very different than the other novels of Elizabeth Gaskell's that I've read. This is set in 1790. It is a historical fiction novel, Elizabeth Gaskell's historical fictional novel, and we're living in this seaside town, I believe, yes, and we have this gang that kind of ransacks this town to pull people into fighting in the Napoleonic Wars. And we are following Sylvia, we're following her little love triangle between these two men, and she is destined to marry one and destined to love the other. So sounds a little tragic, sounds a little dramatic. I'm very interested in this whole reading a historical fictional novel that is a classic as well, so I think that that's an interesting little twist. And yeah, I'm very excited to continue with Miss Elizabeth Gaskell because she's just my fave, and this seems very dramatic and sweeping and a little less happy than the other ones. All right, two more. Next classic that this is the daunting one, and that is David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. I read Great Expectations a while ago and absolutely adored it, but I have yet to pick up any more Charles Dickens, which I find to be just sad. So this one. I was torn between this and The Bleak House, but I decided on this one because it reminded me the most of Great Expectations. It also says that this was Charles Dickens' favorite novel that he wrote, so that kind of sells it as well, right? So we're following a young boy who loses both of his parents, and he escapes his life of seemingly destiny of being a penniless kind of indentured servant to his stepfather to go see if he can make his own way in the world. And we're following his endeavors, his adventures, his mingling with other people, his love interest and potential marriage. Yeah, we're following, and the cast of characters is what is said to make this book. And I think from Great Expectations, my favorite part was the characters. So this seems sweeping and epic and just lovely. So I'm very excited to get to David Copperfield. I think I'm going to try this on audio. I have only listened to classics on audio of books that I've already read, so they were rereads. So I'm interested to see how I get on with that. If not, I can always go back to this chunk of a book. But yes, Charles Dickens. We're going to do it again in 2020. All right, and last but not least, we have a modern classic, and that is The Easter Parade by Richard Yates. I read Revolutionary Road a couple years ago as well. Really enjoyed is like a hard word when like things are not always like comfortable to read or like happy to read, but enjoyed the reading experience, got a lot from the reading experience. And I want to pick up more Yates, so here it is. It's a short little guy. Plan to pick this up in the springtime, probably just because it says Easter in the title, though I have no idea if it actually has to do anything with Easter, but going to read it this spring. This follows two sisters, very different sisters, and their relationship, and I think there's one big event that kind of brings their relationship back into focus, and it's an exploration of their relationship, and that's about all I know about it. But Julian Barnes said is the best modern novel I've ever read. So high praise indeed. Yeah. I also really like these Red Spine classic editions. All right, friends, those are my classic goals for 2020. Oh, that's a lot of pages. But I think we got a good mix in here. Also, unofficially, would also like to get to Anne Bronte's The Tenant of Wildfell Hall and John Steinbeck's East of Eden, but it's not actually. It's just like a goal. If it happens, it happens. If not, you know, we'll live. But an unofficial goal is to get to those as well. What do you plan on picking up? What classic do you plan on picking up in 2020? I would love to chat with you about it down in the comments below. I hope that you are having a lovely day, and I will talk to you later. Bye.